Good morning. Welcome back to Venture Daily, the fastest way to catch up on everything that matters in tech, startups, and venture capital.
Founders, funders, and fans of the future, this is your morning jolt of insight, news you can actually use, and guests who know their stuff. I'm Josiah Simons.
And I'm Jackson Fordyce, and on today's show, OpenAI is building a mega AI hub in Abu Dhabi, its first Stargate outside the US.
The EU just made its first ever bet on defense startups with a 40 million euro fund.
And the Trump administration has banned Harvard University from enrolling foreign students, seriously threatening the admission status of 6,800 Harvard students. It's Friday, May 23rd. Let's get you smarter before your first meeting.
Before we get to the news, a quick word about our sponsor, Public. If you take investing seriously, you need to know about public.com. That's where you can invest in everything. Stocks, options, bonds, crypto. You can even earn some of the highest yields in the industry, like the 7% or higher yield you can lock in with a bond account. Public is a FINRA-registered, SIPC-insured platform that takes your investments as seriously as you do. Fund your account in 5 minutes or less at public.com/venture and get up to $10,000 when you transfer your old portfolio. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in the podcast description. Go down below, click on our link, public.com/venture. That's public.com/venture. Let the lovely people down at Public know who sent you. Really helps support the show. All right, Jackson, today's first story.
We are going back to OpenAI. OpenAI is going international. They are building Stargate UAE, a monster AI data hub in Abu Dhabi, and the company's first outside of the United States.
It's all part of their new OpenAI for Countries tour, helping friendly governments stand up their own AI power with a backstage pass from the US.
This is a 5 gigawatt data cluster. That's 5 times bigger than the one in Abilene, Texas facility we talked about yesterday on the show. And it's just the first phase. 200 megawatts are set to go online by 2026.
The UAE is not just hosting this thing. They're also investing dollar for dollar in US Stargate infrastructure. So this is a two-way street. Help allies build their own AI capabilities while reinforcing America's.
And it's not just infrastructure. This deal means ChatGPT will be rolled out nationwide across the UAE, embedded in everything from government to energy and healthcare.
That's right. This cluster could reach up to half the world's population within a 2,000-mile radius, Jackson. It's not just a UAE play. It's a Middle East, Africa, and South Asia power move.
And it's a geopolitical flex, with OpenAI bringing US-made AI into to a region where China has historically had deep ties. It's a signal. We're showing up and we're bringing the compute.
That's right. The AI Cold War has officially gone global.
And for insight into the story, I called my friend Shahin Farshchi, partner at Lux Capital.
I am a partner at Lux Capital. We're a venture capital firm, been around for 25 years. I joined the firm 17 years ago. I'm an electrical engineer by training. I've invested in chips, rockets, satellites, driverless cars, robotics, AI, and excited to be here.
Calling in from the backseat of a car.
That's right.
Shahin's awesome, dude. We had a good talk for a little while before we got into the show or into the story, but I really appreciate, man, taking the time to be in a car on the call. My first question for Shahin: how might OpenAI's partnership with Abu Dhabi-based G42 and its Stargate UAE project influence the flow of venture capital into the Middle East's AI ecosystem?
So, Jackson, venture capital follows talent. And it's my expectation that a massive resource like the Stargate implementation in the UAE is going to attract a lot of smart people. And I think venture capital would be very smart to follow those people. We've seen a lot of great talent since October 7th go to Israel and build great companies in Israel. And we have been funding companies in Israel. And so our expectation is that whether it's the UAE or anywhere else, that we will follow that talent and fund the great companies that emerge.
Josiah, if they recruited you, would you move to Abu Dhabi?
I'm pretty sure I heard Shahin say that they were going to attract a lot of smart people, so I think I'm just qualified.
I was going to make that joke earlier. It's like, I feel like you can't make it, man. My next question for Shahin was, does the launch of Stargate UAE signal a shift in the global AI power balance away from Silicon Valley, and how might that affect where the next generation of foundational AI companies are built?
It absolutely does. Now, the question is that a good thing or a bad thing? I feel like with OpenAI taking the initiative here and basically controlling this process, that puts us in a better position. From a national security perspective, would we prefer all the people and the hardware and the software to remain in the United States? Absolutely. But for us to maintain our leadership position, we have to partner with other countries who are our allies. And in this case, we are partnering with an ally. And it does create many risks. And I think it is really up to us to control those risks, manage those risks, to be able to maintain our leadership position.
Stargate UAE means the AI map is being redrawn.
Right. While OpenAI is still holding the pen, building beyond Silicon Valley is all about managing the risk and picking the right allies.
And good allies are in high demand, especially given rising tensions between the US and China over AI and semiconductor dominance. In light of this, I asked Shahin, what are the geopolitical implications of OpenAI deepening ties with the UAE?
Well, we know that China has a very deep relationship with the players in that region, including the UAE. We are putting our best foot forward and bringing our best technology over there so that region can benefit from it. It was announced that the UAE will be, or one of the Emirates, or perhaps it's the entire UAE, is going to be providing the pro subscription of ChatGPT to all of its residents for free. And I think that is a huge benefit to OpenAI and a huge benefit to the United States, because now that country is going to be running on an American product, and that will make that product better, and that will benefit us. And the last thing that we would want is for them to be using a Chinese product.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'd go anywhere for a free GPT-4 Pro subscription.
Who wouldn't?
So I ended the question with Shahin. Could the massive infrastructure investment in Stargate UAE accelerate AI timelines? And if so, how should founders and investors recalibrate their expectations for innovation cycles, exits, and defensibility?
So those innovation cycles are collapsing. What would have taken perhaps a year to remain defensible is now being collapsed into 3-4 months. I mean, DeepSeek showed us that. I think DeepSeek was a very sobering moment to show that technological edges are very much coming shorter, and companies need to be constantly innovating. And my expectation is that this is all a good thing. I think ultimately we will all benefit. I think that the creation of these resources in these regions will attract great talents into these areas, and we as investors need to be following that talent. We need to be supporting the companies. We need to be the first on the ground there to be supporting these companies and growing these companies. And I expect a lot of great things to come out of it.
So the pace of AI is speeding up so fast. A year of defensibility now is what, 4 months?
Right, that's what he said. It's basically adapt or get steamrolled. If you're an AI founder, your moat is only as deep as your last model update.
Well, thank you, Shahin, for joining the show. All right. Big news out of Europe. The EU just made its first ever direct investment into defense tech. 40 million euros, that's $45 million, is it into a dedicated European defense fund.
Yeah, this is a big shift, right? The European Investment Fund is backing Keen Venture Partners, which is raising a larger 125 million euro fund to support 20 to 25 early stage defense startups across Europe.
And it's coming at a tense stage with Russia's war in Ukraine still raging and Trump reportedly telling Putin the U.S. might back away from the conflict. European leaders are getting the message. They might be on their own.
Exactly. That's why this fund matters. It's not just about capital, it's about independence. The EU is trying to stand up on its own defense ecosystem, starting with startups, not just legacy primes like Rheinmetall or Leonardo.
And the big question now is whether this money can really move the needle. 40 million euros isn't much on its own, but if this opens up the door to more European VCs backing hardware and defense, we could see a real ecosystem start to take shape, Josiah.
Right, and that's the bet Keen is making. Partner Alexander Rybnik said that investing in, quote, tech entrepreneurs is an important step to ensure Europe has a much more mature and developed ecosystem.
Yeah, Josiah, nearly every other leading nation around the world has a dedicated defense fund, which makes you wonder, why has it taken the EU so long to do so? Right. So I invited Connor Love, defense tech investor and partner at Lightspeed Venture Partners, on the show and asked him about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of funny. I just came back from Europe, and I wish I could say I was drinking Aperol spritzes and having fun. But the goal of that visit was actually to get not necessarily at the heart of this announcement, but just to really understand if the EU is for real when they talk about investing in defense. And I think for one reason or another, and we can point to just the geographical nature of the tens of countries that have to all agree for the EU to do something, or we can say, hey, look at what's come out of the Trump administration not too long ago. It's like Europe needs to defend their own sovereignty for kind of the first time. And I will say the one positive from my trip is it seems like that catalyst has started. I think the outcome that we don't know yet is is this going to be a pan-European approach where companies like Helsing and others kind of can sit across all of Europe and really serve the multitude of different customer bases? Or are we going to have kind of bespoke, unique services to each one of these countries? And, as venture capitalists, we care about the big outcomes. We want to back really kind of audacious people that can do big things. And so I think the reality is we're going to have to see kind of a pan-European approach for this to be super interesting.
Poor Connor, man. Thought he was going to get croissants and coastlines and stuff like that, except you got a front row seat to Europe's existential crisis.
Turns out nothing gets a continent moving like the fear of being left alone with Putin.
And Europe, of course, does have a large defense industry, but it's long been dominated by legacy contractors. And so I asked Connor, how much of a shift is this towards empowering startups? And is 40 million euros enough to move the needle?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in terms of this exact like $40 million slug, I don't think it does much, to be totally honest with you. I do think, though, this is let's call it one building block to say 50 other things that are happening. And I think that the reality is, if you look at the traditional primes and how they're serving the ecosystem, I mean, again, don't quote me exactly on this, but the Rheinmetall investment 3 years ago looks like an investment in NVIDIA or any kind of startup company. I mean, they're growing, 40 to 50% at $10 billion of revenue growth year over year. So in the end, it's like the primes are going to serve this market as spend increases. But if you just do the pure math, like if you listen to what has come out of Germany about increasing the debt limit and spending hundreds of billions of euros on their defense systems, you're not going to solve that problem. You're not going to solve that spend on Rheinmetall alone. It's got to come from elsewhere. And I think the opportunity that exists for many defense companies is like, this is your stage now. I mean, again, this matters for Helsing, this matters for Orca, this matters for a lot of companies throughout Europe.
Yeah, just after a recent cozy call between Trump and Putin, Europe's waking up to a harsh reality. America might not have their back much longer.
Right. And the big question is, how fast can Europe stand on its own 2 feet? And are startups really going to be the ones to do it?
Here's Connor's answer to that.
I wish I had a crystal ball on what was going to happen in Ukraine. I mean, obviously, from a safety and sovereignty perspective, I mean, what the Ukrainians are doing matters not just to Europe, but it matters for the world, to be honest. I think the reality is like building hardware is hard. Like it takes time. Like it's not like something you can turn out a month from now and have an impact on the battlefield. And so I think the clock has started for some of these startups. We've seen this in the United States a lot with like businesses I've invested in, like Castilian and Stronic and Anduril and others, which is you need some early kind of momentum to get you to a place where you can start to build systems and prove the validity. But in the end, the only thing that matters is producing these things at scale. So I think this is like, to be honest, it's a challenge, but it's also a problem when you look at real conflict existing, in and around Ukraine, today. Tens of systems does nothing. Hundreds of systems, thousands of systems are what matters. And you need not only capital to get you there, but you also need development time. You need engineers. You need a talent base. And for better or for worse, like I said earlier, like hardware is hard. You can't just snap your fingers and do it right now.
And that's the real tension here. Europe knows it needs sovereign defense, but startups can't just 3D print a missile factory overnight.
Yeah, hardware is hard might be the understatement of the decade, especially when you're talking about scaling fast enough to matter in an active war zone.
Yeah, and especially when the European Innovation Fund has historically steered clear of military investments. And so I asked Connor, now that the door's open, what kinds of dual use or deep tech startups do you expect will benefit first?
It's interesting because there has been this shift. We've seen this in the United States as well of, not just venture capitalists, but broadly across the ecosystem. But I would say like comfortable investing in everything from like kinetics or munitions or however you want to talk about it. And again, like this is something insanely personal to me. Like, not that this is the most important thing, but it's important to me and how I view this ecosystem. I served in the military. Like, I was with folks, when warfare was kind of going on. And so to me, the important thing, and again, this is not crass. This is not, the military exists to, defend and to actually have kinetic effects on, on things and people. And the reality is, if this is just about, dual use, ISR, all these types, I actually think you're missing a huge component of what the military actually needs to actually deter war, to defend people is, you need kinetics. You need kind of effects and systems to do those things. So I think you're going to see a huge kind of turn to realize that, hey, the things that matter in Ukraine are the drones that can fly, 500, meters and have an effect on a Russian tank or something like that. And I think you're going to see multiple versions of that in the future as something super attractive to invest in.
Thank you to Connor Love for joining the show. All right, let's finish with 2 big stories, rapid fire.
3, 2, 1, go.
All right, Harvard can no longer enroll international students. Effective immediately, the Trump administration has barred Harvard from accepting international students, saying the Ivy League school is fostering, quote, anti-American, pro-terrorist agitators, and even collaborating with the Chinese Communist Party.
It's not just rhetoric. Homeland Security says Harvard trained members of a Chinese paramilitary group as recently as 2024. And because of that, roughly 6,800 international students could be forced to transfer or leave the country.
That's crazy. That's a quarter of Harvard's student body now facing deportation or displacement. The government's pulling its student in exchange visitor program certification, basically the legal backbone that lets foreign students study in the United States.
The feds are also demanding a treasure trove of records, video, audio, participation lists, anything linking foreign students to campus protest or dangerous activity, as they call it. If Harvard doesn't comply in 72 hours, the sanction stands for the entire 2025-26 academic year.
Harvard's response: unlawful, retaliatory, and a threat to the academic mission. Free speech groups are calling it surveillance state overreach, but the administration says it's about protecting Jewish students and cutting off CCP influence.
Big picture, this isn't just about Harvard, it's a threat to all elite universities. Toe the administration's line or prepare for war. And then meanwhile, Strava's breaking records. The fitness app just clinched a $2.2 billion valuation after closing fresh funding from Sequoia Capital and others, making its first capital raise since 2020.
Yep, and they're not just banking cash, they're buying momentum. Strava acquired 2 training apps in rapid fire succession: Runna, a UK-based running coach platform, which was I think earlier in the month, and The Breakaway, a US cycling app, which was announced yesterday.
Strava saw explosive growth during the pandemic, but unlike other fitness startups, it's managed to keep building. CEO Mike Martin says they're on track to hit $500 million in annual recurring revenue, and user growth just jumped 50% last year, now over 150 million users globally. All right, Jackson. That's it for Venture Daily. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in this whole week. This is first week on camera of Venture Daily, and we just really appreciate you being here, spending some time with us.
Yep. And if you like today's show, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, X, leave us a like, a comment, a review. Throw us a 5-star rating if you think we've earned it. And as always, we'll see you tomorrow on Venture Daily.